Hello and welcome to Harvest to You. I'm Pastor Marc, and it is a blessing to have you with us today. Listen, before we start the sermon, I want you to know about harvesttoyou.org. This is a space where you can find additional resources like sermons and devotionals, even a book I recently wrote. It's also a space where you can request prayer. I know that life can be hard, even lonely sometimes, and we would love to come alongside you with resources, equipping, and prayer for your life. Head on over to harvesttoyou.org.
Well, happy December and Merry Christmas to everybody. Christmas is a magical time of the year, to be sure. There's a lot of reasons for that. The twinkling lights, the traditions that we have, the Christmas Eve candlelight services, cinnamon candles wafting in the air. Like, there's a whole lot of reasons why we like this season, but part of the reason it's magical is because Christmas is very rooted in memory. And for many people, Christmas is this nostalgic treasure chest where you open it up and it is just filled with all kinds of traditions and core memories that have shaped you over the years, from grandma's sugar cookies that were like more frosting than cookie, you know the ones I'm talking about, to maybe the traditions where you went to their house or they came to your house. There's so many, I think, sight, sound, smells of Christmas that bring back memories for us. And while it is really, really fun to replay all of the memories and the nostalgia of Christmases in the past, it's very possible to so live in the past that you miss perhaps what God wants to do in the present and like what he wants to do today, like this month, this Christmas. And the goal of the sermon series through December is to remind you of what you might need to do and what God wants to do this Christmas. I want us to begin today with a little snippet of the Christmas story in Luke chapter number 1. This is the announcement of Jesus' birth to his mother, Mary. And here it is in Luke chapter 1, verse number 26. We're told that in the 6th month, there was an angel named Gabriel that was sent from God unto the city of Galilee in Nazareth. And here it is, verse 27. He was sent to a virgin, espoused to a man whose name was Joseph. This would be Mary and Joseph. You likely know those names. He was of the house of David, and the virgin's name, the girl he was going to marry, was Mary. And the angel came in unto her and said, Hail, thou art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And when she saw him, listen to these words, she was troubled. She wasn't delighted. She was troubled at his saying. And she cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. Meaning, Mary is very disturbed. She's very shaken. She's confused. She's trying to figure out what in the world is going on right now. And the word that is used for this situation she finds herself in is that she was troubled. This was not comfort to her. This was chaos to her. Now go down to verse number 37 and you find the game-changing words, the end of the angel's message to Mary as she's wrestling with this. Mary, with God, nothing shall be impossible. Mary, sky's the limit with God. There is nothing that is outside of his control, his power, his timing. And this truth is a truth that shifted everything for Mary. She went from troubled to trusting. And her final response at the end of this episode, because of the truth that God can do anything, is this, verse 38. Mary said, Behold the handmaid of the Lord. Be it unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. Mary trusted God with her trouble. And in turn, God gave her a prominent place in the most legendary story the world has ever known, the birth of Jesus. This Christmas, I think it would be helpful for us to look at this story and to glean from it that we can just bring our trouble to God. Whatever is troubling you this Christmas, I would encourage you to bring it to God. Because what feels impossible for you may very well feel very, very possible for him. There's a note in Psalm chapter number 108 where the psalmist, I think, encapsulates this idea so succinctly and beautifully, where he says, give us help from our trouble, God. God, give me help from my trouble, for vain is the help of man. Today's sermon is a very simple sermon. It's based off of the reality that we all face trouble. If you've lived any length of time, you know this to be true. You have had and likely do have trouble in your life right now. Job put it this way, and this is his summary of life. Job said that man that's born of woman, few days, full of trouble. And Job wasn't depressed when he wrote this. He wasn't like having a bad day or something. Job said, life isn't all that long and there's loads of trouble along the way. That's what he said. And Job was not wrong. He said, what kind of trouble do we face? Well, all sorts. We face physical trouble. This can be what's talked about the least sometimes in churches. Churches focus on the spiritual, and rightfully so. But oftentimes we have physical trouble. And that physical does at times even inform our spiritual, but these are the types of pains that are literal pains that come upon us, especially as we grow older. You say, well, am I growing older? Like, am I over the hump? Am I at the spot where I'm going to have loads of physical trouble? I don't know. You'd have to answer that for yourself. But I think perhaps a good litmus test to know if you're at that spot where you're likely going to have lots of physical trouble is here's a good acid test. If your idea of a really fun Friday night is a heated blanket and a nap, then you're probably at the spot where you're about to have loads of physical trouble. One of our congregants recently told me that they knew they were getting older because if it didn't hurt, it didn't work. That everything that was on their body that worked was now hurting, and it was just part of their medical summary of life. Some of you know what that's like, where you've had chronic pain, like literally. And the rheumatoid arthritis or the back pain or whatever it is just there haunting you day after day after day. Or you got a medical diagnosis that you can't shake, that autoimmune disease or that surgery or that cancer that just lives with you in unbelievable ways. And while you're thankful for God's goodness, you're dealing with physical trouble. And it's not fun. It's anything but. It hurts. Even in the Bible, you find different stories of people who have physical trouble, and one that's notable, I think, is Timothy, who was a pastor, and he was told to stop drinking water, but to drink some wine for his stomach's sake, and then the Apostle Paul went on to say, for your often infirmities, meaning you're sick all the time, man. Like flu season is every season for you. Like you are just constantly sick. And some of you know what that's like to have an immune system that's shot and it feels like you catch everything. You're just sick all the time. What is that? That's physical trouble. That's what that is. Some of us face relational trouble. You survey the Bible and you find real quick that people have relational trouble. First family, one brother is murdering the other. Fast forward just a little bit, and all of a sudden, Jacob is tricking Esau, his brother, and he's deceiving him. And what does that lead to? Hostility and stonewalling, and over a decade of not talking to each other because the relationship was fractured. Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers, and he's lied about, and they cover it up. Moses had a wife who told him to his face, basically, you're a crazy psychopath. I want nothing to do with you. David had sons, his own flesh and blood, who wanted to betray him, who didn't want to talk to him. Even Jesus had family members who thought he was crazy. So if you have relational trouble with your friends or with your family, know that you're in good company. That's not unusual. These are the types of troubles that don't show up on a scan or on a blood panel, but they are bone deep. They hurt. And when you get to the Christmas season, at times, these sorts of troubles are exacerbated. The cracks in your relationship are revealed all the more during Christmas because now they're not around anymore. They don't want to talk to you anymore. It's not because they passed away. It's because they pushed away. And they're not around, and they used to be. Or you're going to Christmas and you know that they are going to be there. You know what I'm talking about? Them. The one who has these really strong opinions but really weak volume control, who just annoys the fire out of you. Or you're going to go to Christmas and you're going to pretend like last year's blow up didn't happen. And we're all just going to act like nothing was wrong, nothing happened. What's happening here? Relational trouble. What's happening when your kids walk away from God and now they're prodigals? Or your kids, maybe they don't walk away from God, they just walk away from you and they want nothing to do with you. These are troubles that we have, and they hurt. They hurt deeply. And relationships and families are oftentimes messy and complicated and petty, and it wears on us. We also have financial trouble. And doesn't December show that? They say that the average American spends more than they make, and as such, the average American is living paycheck to paycheck. The average American household has 8 credit cards and $15,000 in credit card debt. 90% of Americans don't have a budget, no plan, no roadmap, which means it's likely the majority of even you here. Over half of Americans can't cover a $400 expense without selling something or borrowing something. 30% of American adults have no savings at all. Money is still the leading cause of divorce in our country. And what happens is you get to December, a month that is marked by generosity and people wanting to give, presents to each other and bless each other, but you're still trying to pay off last Christmas. And it's tough to be generous with gifts when you're avoiding debt collections. And all of a sudden, December just reveals how messy your financial situation is. And it's not fun. It's not fun to try to figure it out and finagle the money and borrow from here and go here and there. And it turns into something that just weighs on you. And December becomes extremely stressful because you have financial trouble. We have emotional trouble. I heard someone recently say, and I thought this was so funny, they said, I feel like my emotions are running Windows 95, slow to load and prone to crash. And I thought, what a great descriptor. You ever been there where your emotions are both slow to load, like you just feel numb to everything, but at the same time you're prone to crash and you may just fly off the handle at a moment's notice? I don't know how those two coexist together, but when you're emotionally thin, they do. You feel numb and very triggered at the same time. And sometimes we get to Christmas and you hear a pastor get up and they play a cute little sermon, bumper, and it has this gingerbread house, and he says, Christmas is this treasure chest of nostalgia, and you think, no, it's not. You know what my Christmas was like growing up? It stunk. I was in 8 different foster homes, 8 Christmases in a row. Christmas was the time where everyone else got stuff, and they came back to school in their new shoes, and I didn't have anything because we were poor, and it showed. And there can be emotions and memories that are dredged up out of our soul. There can be emotional heaviness that surrounds this season because this is the first year that there's an empty chair at the dinner table for them and we miss them and just all that happens emotionally inside of us. Everyone else is joyous and singing and happy, and I feel lonely and I feel depressed, and there's anxiety and emotions that happen. This was Mary's issue. If you read the story of Mary, she was troubled. Why was she troubled? How was she troubled? It wasn't physical. It wasn't financial. It was emotional. There was anxiety and fear that gripped her because of this message that the angel came to her with. Even the psalmist writes about this when he says, have mercy on me, O God, I'm in trouble. And what was the psalmist's trouble? My eye is consumed with grief. God, my trouble is that I am just grieving. I am sad. And it's constant. And I want your help with this. Many of us know what this is like, to have seasons like this. And to boot, if all that wasn't enough, when we face both physical and financial and relational and emotional trouble, we have spiritual trouble on top of all of it. These are the types of troubles that we don't oftentimes want to talk about, and we hide them behind a smiling face or a busy schedule, or we numb ourselves with another Netflix show to binge because we don't want to address what's really happening below the surface. Even the Apostle Paul knew about this when he wrote and said, "O wretched man that I am, who's going to deliver me from this body of death?" Meaning sin has got a hold of me and I feel stuck. Now, spoiler alert, the answer to his question was Jesus. But he felt the weight of sin in his life. Sometimes we forget this or we minimize this, that we're dealing with sin. Not their fault, not mom and dad's fault, not because they did what we did. And there's shame with that. There's regret with that. There's guilt with that. All the damage that we've done to ourselves and to other people, not just breaking God's law, but literally like breaking relationships and breaking our peace and breaking our joy because of sin in our life. And all of this compounds to make Job's assessment of life very true, where Job said, "My days are not that long, and I got a whole lot of trouble along the way." Then he goes on to say this, "God, give us help from our trouble," and don't miss this note. This is a truth that we want to forget, but it's one that's worth mentioning. It's not a happy one, but it's one that you need to know. "For vain is the help of man." That's what the psalmist says. God, give us help from our trouble, because man's help is at best very limited. I am not really getting the help that I need from the doctor or the psychologist or the pastor or my mama or my friend. It's just not working very well. This is an important thing to remember. This is not just a depressed note from someone who didn't have a grip on reality. This is how it works. All of the wisdom, all of the strategy, all of the planning, all of the resources that someone has to give you, it's a paper umbrella in a hurricane. There's only so much that other people can do for you. That sounds like a depressing note, but it'll get more hopeful in a minute. Trust me. Even today, like I know there's a handful of families that are with us today who have had a hard year. And we want to bless you, and we want to love you, and we want to hug you, and we want to spoil you, and we want to make today a great day. But one meal isn't going to feed you next week. And a few presents won't last a lifetime. Like, there's only so much that another human can do. And the psalmist says, it feels vain to me. You can almost hear him saying, like, I've looked around. I've tried my best. I've leaned on other people, and it's not enough. Not to say that people are completely unhelpful. I'm very thankful for good parents. I'm very thankful for pastors who care. I'm very thankful for a good counselor. I'm thankful for social services and what they can do. I'm thankful for a friend and the listening ear that they can provide. But you have to understand that those people, they can't know your pain as deep as you know your pain. They can't heal your heart. They can't forgive your sins. They can't fix so much of the trouble that ails you. And don't we know this to be true? Man, I thank God for doctors and for hospitals and for scientists and for research, but how many times have you or someone that you loved gone to the doctor and they can't even get a diagnosis? They can't even figure out what in the world's going on, much less figure it out and stop it. Sometimes we're able to take an antibiotic and we're able to heal the infection, and that's wonderful. But so many times you can't figure it out. And you come to this conclusion that I have these loads of trouble that's being heaped on my life, and I'm not going to be able to cut it with just other humans. You say, man, this is the most depressing Christmas sermon I've ever heard in my life. Life is hard and people can't help you that much? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. That's not all I'm going to say, but we're going to start there. Yes. Let's not push past that reality, okay? Let's not sugarcoat Christmas or the month of December and just sing Christmas carols and act like everything's honky-dory. It's not always honky-dory. Sometimes life is hard. Most of the time, life is hard. You say, well, what in the world am I supposed to do? If I have all this trouble, and vain is the help of man, what is my solution? Well, Mary figured it out in Luke chapter number 1 when she learned that with God, anything is possible. And the psalmist had figured it out as well, because what did he do with his trouble? What he did with his trouble is he took it to God. The whole verse in Psalm 108, verse number 12, is God, give me help from my trouble. If man's help is at best limited, that's contrasted with God's help that is limitless. And the psalmist knows this, and he takes his trouble and he takes it to the one who can really help. To the one who doesn't need a reminder, to the one who doesn't say, hey, start from the beginning, I forgot what was going on in your story or in your life. Remind me again. To the one who doesn't need to consult ChatGPT or somehow get an assist or Google it. He goes to the God and cries out to the God who knows the beginning from the end, who has everything under his control, who not only knows all of it, but cares about all of it. And he says, God, I want your help. I've got this going on in my life and I need your help for this. And God doesn't whisper like, man, I never saw that coming. God's not the one who says, yeah, my bad, I was supposed to help you last time, but I forgot. God isn't the one who says, hold on, let me write that down. God's the one who can actually help, who knows every thought, who knows every burden, who knows every care and is there and open and available. And God knows and cares. And the psalmist knows this, and he takes his bucket of trouble that is his life and he pours it out to God and he says, God, I need your help. He doesn't run to some distant deity who has no concern, who's somehow apathetic to what he's going through. Not in the least. He takes his trouble to God. Now listen to this. What you need to know is that if you have trouble in your life, you're not weird. Okay, you're not abnormal, you're not broken. If you feel like, well, this Christmas joy is for the other people, no, there's a whole lot of other people who feel the same way. You need to know that you're not alone in that. You need to know that man's help is at best extremely limited, and you need to know that God can help you with this. Now that's what you need to know, but here's what you need to do. You need to get to God. You knowing that God can help you is not enough. You got to get to him. You don't have to have a silver tongue. You don't have to have an eloquent prayer. You don't have to feel like you know all the words. This prayer in Psalm 108 is extremely simple. God, give me some help from my trouble. It's that simple. But the psalmist was smart enough to know, I've got to get to God. I have got to get my trouble from my heart and my soul and my life pushed over to the King of Heaven. And I've got to ask for his help with this. I cannot handle this on my own, and I need him desperately. Mary was in the same boat. She was troubled, until she came to the realization that God could do anything, and he was in control, and she could trust him, and she surrendered to it, and she rested in the omnipotence of God. You have got to get to that point where you take your trouble, and the funny thing is, the most helpful solution for us is often the one that we do last. We'll go to everybody. We'll call our friend and we'll vent for hours. We'll post about it on social media on how messed up it is, how hard life is. We'll tell our doctor, we'll tell our therapist, but we'll never tell God when he's the one that can really help. And this man knows, I have got to get my trouble to God. And the good news is that he knows all about it. He cares and he wants to help. If you have physical trouble, guess what? God designed your body. He knows your body inside and out better than anybody does. And while I can't promise you some sort of magical healing, I can promise you that he knows and that he can help. If you have emotional trouble, take it from Mary. She trusted in God and she found help for that anxiety and for that fear. If you have relational trouble, take it to God. I'm not going to say that he's going to sprinkle pixie dust on your relationships and that everything's just going to be fantastic. But he can help. He can be a friend. He can give peace. If you have spiritual trouble, beyond all of them, that's the one that you definitely need to take to God. As a pastor, I love to help people, but I can't forgive you. I can't absolve you of your sins. I can't clean your heart. I can't give you a home in heaven. That is way above my pay grade. But guess what? God can. You know why Jesus came? Not to be a moral example. That's not why he came. We're told very plainly why he came in Matthew chapter number 1. Quote, he's coming to save his people from their sins. Jesus came for your spiritual struggles and for your trouble. Jesus came for that wretched man or woman that you are. Jesus came for all of that, all of those regrets and all the damage you've done and all the things that you feel guilty about and you wish that you could take back. You don't need to fake it. You just face it and you bring it to him. You say, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I'm giving you my trouble that is my sin. Would you forgive? Would you heal? Would you cleanse? And God can do what God can do, what no other human can do. He can heal you from all of that. Listen to these words of people who went to God and found trouble in the scriptures. In Chronicles, the children of Israel had trouble that was like oppression and enemies. And here's what they said. They went in their trouble. They did turn to the God of Israel. They sought him and he was found. They took their trouble to God and there he was. In Psalm 9, we're told that the Lord is a refuge for the oppressed. He's a refuge in times of trouble. In Psalm 107, we're told that they cried unto the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them out of their distresses. And we could go on. They took their trouble to God, and there he was to find it and to help with it. There's a sister in Jesus, a hero of the faith, so to speak, that lived in the late 1800s, early 1900s, by the name of Annie Johnston Flint. Annie had lots of trouble. She was born an orphan. Annie Johnston was her name. She was adopted by the Flints, so Annie Johnston Flint became her name. And she wrote some of the most amazing hymns that you'll ever read in the late 1800s. After being orphaned and then adopted, Annie suffered immensely. She had rheumatoid arthritis in a time where there was no treatment for the pain, and her body became very deformed, curled up. She spent most of her life in a wheelchair in extreme pain. She lost most of her eyesight. To say that she was legally blind would have been an understatement. Then eventually she had cancer. And Annie, towards the end of her life, wrote the words to this song. And listen to her words. If you don't take it from me, take it from her. God gives more grace as our burdens grow greater. He sends more strength as our labors increase. To added afflictions, he adds his mercy. To multiplied trials, he multiplies peace. His love has no limits and his grace has no measure. His power no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth and giveth and he giveth again. What is Annie saying? Annie is saying, I have a ton of trouble. I give it to God. And it's not that he takes all of the trouble away, but he's there to meet me in it and he's there to help me through it. And his mercy and his grace and his peace give me something that no one else in the world can give.
I pray that today's message challenged and encouraged you in your walk with Christ. And if this sermon was a blessing to you, know that it was made available because of our financial partners. I want to take a moment and invite you to be a part of that tribe. I know not everyone's in a position to give, and if that's you, then please just let this broadcast be a blessing. There are no strings attached. But if God's blessed you with the ability to give, I would love for you to link arms with us and support what God is doing here. As a small way of saying thank you for your generosity, I'd love to send you a copy of my new book, The Prayer Jesus Gave. This is a guided tour through the model prayer, the Our Father, as some call it. And if you've ever felt like your prayer life could use an upgrade, I know it will be a help. You can give and receive your copy at harvesttayou.org/give or by mailing a donation to the address on your screen. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Sunday.